thank you all for being here. I do want to go ahead and I'm just going to jump into some stuff, and as more people join, they can participate too. So some of the stuff is, again, if just use that chat, if you click the little chat button at the bottom, use that down there, because I am going to do a little bit of feedback from you guys. I know not everybody wants to be on video or wants to be seen, but you can use the chat to do some questions and stuff. And so the fact that you're here is awesome. You made it. Thank you for being here. Share this with other people later on. Come back tomorrow. Make sure you hit share. I want you to do something for me real quick though, okay? I want you to think about what conversations you had as a teenager growing up. What were the conversations like with your parents or family member that had to do with anything that dealt with sex, that dealt with dating, that dealt with personal boundaries, respect? What were the things, what did that conversation look like? Now, you don't have to give your full story, because some of you might not want to give your full story, but if you can, why don't you just let us know if it was good, or if it was okay, or if it was just like, don't really remember. So write good, write great, write nothing really took place. If you could just write that in the chat real quick, I would love to see that. There we zilch zero nada, says one of our guys there. So anybody, just so you can give a thumbs up, just write in that check in the little chat room. What were your conversations like about sex with your parents? Was it, non-existent? Was it pretty good? Was it constant? Or, didn't hear a word from them? As you can see, for some of you guys are seeing in the chat room, for some of the people that responded to it, it was kind of like, wasn't nothing, wasn't much, or maybe it was a little bit. Maybe some of you aren't responding, but you did have some good talks with your family. I mean, that's kind of why we're here. I know for me, it was pretty non-existent. My mom made it really clear to me, like, respect women. And that was about it from my mom's point of view. She just wanted to make sure when you grow up, you respect women. You don't yell at them. You don't talk mean to them. You don't raise a hand to them. You respect women. You open that door. I mean, my mom was big on opening doors for women, and I probably should do that more. But my dad, the only conversation I had with my stepdad was, gentlemen don't go to gentlemen's clubs. That was it. He told me that when I turned 18, because I guess he thought when I turned 18, maybe I was going to go wander off. That was the only conversation I ever had. Gentlemen don't go to gentlemen's clubs. That was it. And he's like, you understand what I'm saying? I'm like, okay, good. I'm 18 years old. I don't want to have this talk. No other conversations about any of that stuff growing up though. And so they were good parents. They were awesome. But here's the thing. What I learned was either it was at school. It was either in the classroom, like many of you probably had like that, that one health class that you had to take that was probably taught to you by like a gym coach, or, some other teacher that just filled in for a class and gave you pretty much the basics. So my teacher pretty much was like, if you do this, this, and this, you're going to get this STD, you're going to die from this, or you're going to get pregnant. And that was pretty much my talk in school. The rest of the stuff I picked up in the locker room. I picked up from older friends. I picked up from just, what you see on TV. And that's pretty much probably how a lot of you, if we're honest, what we picked up at. And we know that's probably not the best thing. And that's why we're here, right? Why are we here? We're here because we have to understand they're going to learn something from somewhere. I just want you to think about that in your mind right now. They're going to learn something from somewhere. Just always keep that in your head. Whenever you're wondering, like, should I have this conversation? Just remember, they're going to learn something from somewhere. That's what we always just need to think about. Where do I want them to learn it from? Well, you're the parents. You are their family member. You might be grandma or grandpa or somebody, who knows? We don't know. You need to remember that. Who's going to be teaching them? And so that's kind of why we're here, right? So they're learning it from somewhere. We can't deny that anymore. We know that studies show now that by the time a kid's 10 years old, they've most likely already come across some sort of explicit material or pornography. By the time they're 10, a few years ago, that number was much higher. And that's not just boys. That's for girls too. Our young boys and our young ladies are learning it somewhere. We live in what they are calling right now a hypersexual culture, where they are just bombarded with stuff. And then I just briefly talked about that. So you've already watched some of that video there. We know that they're being taught. We know that this stuff's there. We can't deny it anymore. So what we tend to do sometimes, parents, and maybe this is you, let's be honest, we either make the mistake of, one, it's uncomfortable, it's weird, I don't want to talk with this. No one talked to me about it and I figured it out. I don't want to talk to my kids about it. So we just avoid it, tiptoe around it, and hope everybody's okay, right? I mean, sometimes that's kind of what we want to do. Or we do the opposite. We guard them with everything. We hide it. We make sure, don't tell them this stuff's online. Don't tell them about these things. Don't even give them the idea. Hide every TV show, hide every movie, don't listen to any other music. Just protect them and guard them from everything. Well, the problem is they're going to leave the house at some time and they're going to hear about this from somewhere. So instead of guarding them from everything, we need to do something different. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, one of those verses we just talked about, you said we got to guard our hearts. And that's true. But as parents, we need to teach our teenagers, our high school students, how do you guard your own heart? Because as parents, we're just not going to be able to do that anymore. In fact, as parents, our relationship with them is changing a little bit when they become teenagers, right? It's no longer protecting them from everything in the world. Now we are partnering with them in this world. We are guiding them in this world so that they can do these things on their own. I love everything about Proverbs chapter 4. So if you can go back, read through Proverbs chapter 4 at some time, go for it, because it is so much just about parents teaching your kids and helping them out. But if Proverbs 4:23 talks about guarding our hearts, but we need to show how do we get them to the point where they're guarding their own hearts. And Proverbs 4 verse 1, it starts out pretty plain and clear. He says, listen, my son, to a father's instruction. Now, moms, that can be listen, my daughters, to a mom's instruction. Listen, my son, to a mom's instruction. It can be for anybody. Listen, hey, grandkids, listen to your grandpa's instructions. Whatever it is, you can do this. And he says, pay attention and gain understanding. They need to be gaining. What are they gaining from you? When we start asking ourselves that question, what are my kids gaining from me when it comes to the topic of sexual integrity? What are they gaining from me? Are they gaining anything? Are they gaining something positive? What are they gaining? And that is something we have to really think about. What are they gaining? I have to do something real quick in one of these. One second. We have to, when we're talking about gaining, are they gaining understanding? Are we guiding them along? Are we helping them? Are we helping them to learn how to protect themselves? And so that's kind of what we're doing. And I want to break it down into pretty simple things here, because by the time they're teenagers, look, in the other chat rooms right now, they're talking about, well, they need to know their body parts and they need to know privacy and they need to know about this. By the time they're teenagers, they've already figured that stuff out. They already know about most of these things. Their questions, the things they're kind of looking into is on a much larger scale. And so the best thing that we can do is start to think about, how can I be intentional? How can I create those times for those real conversations? If I'm supposed to be guiding them, if I'm supposed to be directing them, if I'm supposed to be pouring into my kid, then it has to be intentional. It's got to be time that you set up. And this is the key to all of it, that you set up in order to have these conversations with them. You cannot just walk by your 16-year-old son while he's brushing his teeth and it's 11 o'clock at night and be like, son, do you know about the sex? All right. You can't just have some random weird conversation. They're going to oh, get out of here, shut the door. They're going to freak out. That's not a good time or a good way to bring up a very large, brief this whole topic. You can't hit it all at once. And so one of the things we're going to show you here is, and I don't know if people can see this, but we have these phase maps. And I'm going to post the link to all of this stuff here in a second. But these phase maps kind of walk you through, like, here is, in your kid's age, the things that we can be talking about when it comes to sexual integrity. So how do we set up intentional time? This is going to look different for every parent. I'm sorry, there's not like a check 1, 2, or 3. This is what it's going to do. Your kid's different. You're different. It may be setting very intentional times, 3 or 4 times, 5 times, 6 times a year, where you go out to coffee with your kid. Maybe that's their thing. They think it's cool to sit in a coffee shop and you know, they feel older, and you have a conversation with them about stuff. Maybe you guys like to do projects together, and it's some sort of project you're going to work out in the garage and do, a hunting trip, something that you guys have always planned to do, a camping trip. Maybe it's just going shopping. You know, they need a new pair of shoes, and hey, let's go get this. They need a new pair of cleats. All right, let's go find a time, and we're going to grab some food while we're out. Making those times intentional, making real life situations, not uncomfortable, not weird ones, not, all right, let's sit at the table and dad's going to draw a picture. Tell me what you know. Those are not good things. You want to do real life situations. Find a time you're just driving in the car. For some of you, you got a senior and they're checking out colleges, and you're going to be going and driving and doing some college trips. Talk about some of this stuff. Make intentional times. And that is the biggest #1 piece of advice I could give any parent. Find intentional times, not just one time, but continual intentional times where you are going to have conversations with your student. And here's what you're going to do. All right. I want to give you just solid, like something that you could walk away with, not feel overwhelmed by, and say, okay, I can do that. You're going to pick one thing at each time you have that conversation. You're going to pick one thing that you're going to choose and say, all right, I'm just going to talk about this. That conversation may last 6 or 7 minutes. It may last 60 minutes. You're just going to let it flow naturally. So during this phase, here's what we know what students are talking about in the high school years. That's why you're here, in the high school years, right? You're going to talk about dating, maybe. Maybe your kid's starting to date. Maybe their friends are starting to date. And so you could just say, all right, I'm going to ask them about their friends and what that's looking like. And maybe that's all you talk about during that conversation. Maybe your conversation is, maybe they're starting to talk about boys or girls. And so you just ask them, hey, when it comes to dating, like, what type of guy, what type of girl are you talking to? Like, who are you looking for? What's your standard in who you're dating? Find stuff out, because you want to know what standard it is that they are having with one another. Maybe you have some boundaries and some rules about online activity in your household, where the phones go, where the laptop goes, where the computer goes. Talk to them and make sure, like, hey, you know, your phone, we have it checked out at 9 o'clock for a reason. Like, do you understand why we do that? And maybe that's your conversation about those boundaries that they have. You might have kids that are posting stuff online. And you want to ask them, hey, I noticed some of this stuff was online. Maybe they're dressing differently while they're making their posts than how they normally do. Talk to them about that. Hey, I saw you were wearing that. Why? How come you put that online, but you don't really wear that around, like, to school or other things? Like, well, help me out. What is it that you like about that shirt or about that dress or about those pants? Like, have conversations without condemning them, without just putting your fist down and saying, no, why would you wear that? Ask them about why they're choosing those things, and then start talking to them about the why and the boundaries and self-respect that they may have for that. And what are they trying to accomplish by getting more likes? And have those conversations flow from there. That's the greatest thing. What I think happens, parents, and tell me, you can just write this in the chat room. Sometimes we hear this stuff and we feel overwhelmed because we're like, I don't have hardly any conversations and I feel like I'm losing. So in the chat room, just, if you could just write overwhelmed, if that's how you feel sometimes by this stuff, or, hey, I take it, you know, one step at a time. So, or I got this. Maybe just write one of those things in the chat room just to let everybody else know how you're feeling. Because sometimes parents, it's good to see other parents feel this too. I know sometimes I have 3 daughters and a son, 2 mid-school daughters and 1 high school daughter, and a son that's 9. there are times when I feel overwhelmed. Like, how do I keep up with all of this stuff? And so I would write overwhelmed. So in the chat, please participate with me. I know we're here, but pretend like you're in a room and I'm asking who feels overwhelmed. So if you feel overwhelmed by some of this stuff, type in overwhelmed right now. If you feel like, hey, I can do this, type in I can do this. Help me out. Type in something with me about that. That's your chance right now. Maybe you don't want to. I get that. Here's the thing that I want to kind of, go with you on here. For you as parents, start to tell them your standards as well. When you start talking about dating, like as a dad, I like to start, and I just little pieces of it, like, hey, I just hope you have a guy that acts like this. I hope you meet someone that would treat you like this, because as my daughter, that's how I would want you to be treated. I start having those conversations with them now, even though none of them are really dating. I just start having those conversations with them now because I want them to know, here's what I would like for you to have. I want you to meet somebody that acts like this. Sometimes if I do something for my wife and they're like, why? I'm like, because that's what she should have. And I hope someday you meet somebody that treats you in the same way. We start having those conversations with them, start having the conversations with them about your dreams for them. Share with them what you hope for them. Share with them what you, what you hope they're watching or what they're not watching, or listen to their music with them and ask them about some of those songs. Don't just come in things with judging, but really start talking to them about what you think for them. Dads, have that conversation with your daughters too. Don't rely on your wife to have all those talks. There are certain talks that certainly she's going to be better at, but you can have those talks with your daughters too. I think it's so important for men to let their daughters know, this is the type of guy I hope you date. And moms, I think it's really important for you to let your sons know, hey, I hope you find someone like this. And make sure you're telling your daughters, I hope he treats you in this way. You don't deserve anything less than that. Start having some of those talks. Setting up guidelines, setting up talks about boundaries. Hey, when it comes to dating and stuff, like, ask your kid at some point. When it comes to dating, like, what do you think's too far? When you have that open door, it may be a weird question, but they need to talk about this stuff. Here's the biggest thing, and we're here, we're adults, we're in this conversation together. My biggest question I get asked now as a student pastor, it used to be, how far is too far, Rob? Now it is, hey, Rob, is oral sex okay? Because as long as I'm not having sex, is that fine? And so they are finding closer and closer ways to draw that line because they are watching this stuff on TV. They are seeing these images. They are seeing this, and even if it's not on the shows they're watching, it's implied of what's taking place. So they're asking more graphic questions, and teenagers are asking this to us, our juniors and seniors, our sophomores. They are starting to ask these things because it's taking place and they don't know. So start having those questions with them. What are the boundaries? What are boundaries you have for yourself? That's going to open up a lot of conversations. Now you might be thinking, no. They're learning something from somewhere though, parents. They're learning something from somewhere. You have to decide where they want to hear it. That's one of those things in the phases, is what are they talking about? And so we have lots of great material for you guys. And I want you to know about all of this stuff. And so I'm going to drop a few links. And so what I'm about to give you is a thing. It's a link tree, and it's got all of our information on it. And so I'm going to put it in here in a second. But what it has is it has these phase maps that just says, as your kid gets older, here are the conversations you should be having with them. Really good stuff. And there's going to be a link that you can click on. There is an entire thing that you can click on, and it is this information. It's like, I don't know, 10 or 12 pages, and it's good stuff. And it just says sexual integrity through the phases. And it kind of walks you through as parents. Here's some stuff you can be talking with your kid about. There's going to be a link to a Parent Q app. We love Parent Q app. I use Parent Q app so time. Parents, I'm going to be honest. I can talk to a room full of teenagers about sex, about any topic. It does not make me uncomfortable. I can sit down with a group of 15, guys and just talk about this stuff as much as I want. When I sit down with my own kid, it's tough for me. It's real. And sometimes I can be like, I don't know if I'm saying the right thing or what I'm doing. Here's what I love the Parent Q app, and I'm going to pull it up. The Parent Q app is a free app, and it allows you to put your kid into it, whatever age they are. I know it's hard to see on the screen, but it comes with built-in questions. So we're talking about sexual integrity right now with our students. And so the Parent Q app comes with ways to bring these topics up with kids my age. So it talks about at dinner time. Start talking, have a question about this, about drama at the table. What does that look like? How does that escalate? About pressures they may experience. And it gives you when you're in the car, talk about this. And I'm like, okay, I'm in the car with a high schooler. I can ask her this question on the way to school and talk for a couple minutes. And maybe she can have this conversation later with her mom more about this stuff. I can do these things, and it empowers you. It gives you the tools to say, okay, I got this. So you walk away knowing these things are possible. And so I'm going to drop that link in here right now. In 1 second. Just lost it. Don't lose me. Don't walk away. We're finding it. I had it here and then it went away. Of course it did. You know what? I'm just going to type it in. It's www.linktr.ee. linktr.ee. My typing is awful here. /FS. Oh my goodness. Okay, if you click, you might have to just copy and paste that into your browser. If you do that though, it's going to take you directly to a resource that has all of those things you can print off. All of that stuff will be online as well. You can also go to our fbcbluesprings.org and go to downloads, and it'll be all the paperwork and all that stuff. That tree is on there as well. Did it work? Okay, perfect. So if you click on that, it'll go to all of those things that you can pull up for free. Here's the deal. Parents, the Parent Q stuff, it has separate things you can print off. It's got the app that gives you tools to do it. All of those things, there's some really good stuff in there. There's some other apps. There's a great one called Info for Families that will just offer. It's got different video blogs, some audio stuff, just all these tools that help you know, hey, you can do this. And so that's what this is really all about. I would love to know from you all, if anybody has any questions or anything, what questions do you guys have? What are some things that maybe you're saying, hey, this is all overwhelming to me. This is tough. Does anybody have anything that you're saying that you have one question about, or what is one thing that you want to start talking with your kids about? Not sure if anybody has anything specific that they say, that's what I want right there. So if you have something, let us know. I have a little bit of time here left in our chat room for maybe some Q&A. If anybody has anything, now's a great time. I'm glad those did work. It looks like those worked. on my end, it won't let me click it, but I don't know if it's because I'm the host and I posted it. So people are saying that link tree works. So use that. Hey, again, copy that, save that post, give that to your friends. All right. So this is a great question. What advice do you give for parents of blended family where the other parent isn't on the same page as you? This is a really good question. Start talking to your kids. You can't bash what another parent is doing, but you need to let them know, hey, this is what I want for you. This is how I view these things with you. And let them know where you're coming from when it comes to, like, hey, I follow after God, and I believe wholeheartedly that this is what God has set up for you, because this is what's healthy. This is, establishing these types of boundaries are going to be good for you. Have those conversations with your kids. It's always a tough one when you have another parent who may have a different viewpoint of things. But your kids, especially, and I promise you, your teenagers, if you're living this out and you are sharing your standard, they're going to see a difference, and they're going to understand in your life where you're coming from. And so most of you all on here, my background, and we have blended families. Now, we have really good support, and I don't know if there's a whole lot of difference in opinions on things, but all I can share with is, hey, in this household, this is what I'm following after. And this is how we feel. And this is what God says about these things. And there's lots of good, scripture verses and stuff in those. I could spend all the time going over all these different verses and stuff, but we share with our kids in our house the time that we have, and I can only be intentional with the time that I have. And so I share with them, this is what I believe. This is what God's done for my life. And this is why I'm coming, like, I direct it from that angle. I don't have to bring up anybody else, because to me, that's what's important. Now, they may ask questions. I always take it back to, this is what God wants. And as your dad, I follow after God. I believe he's made a difference in my life. I hope that you can see the difference. I think when they're younger, it's more difficult. When you have 16, 17, and 18-year-olds, by that point, if there's a big difference in people's lives, they see it. And good or bad, they see a difference, and they're going to start forming those opinions together. One of the questions in here, I'm trying to get through these, so I took a little bit long on that. How do you guide and give freedom to high schooler while protecting younger siblings? You have those conversations with your older one while you're talking about them with that. You need to let them know, hey, I'm talking to you and coming alongside with you because I respect that. And the conversations I have with you are not the same conversations I'm having with your brother or your sister. And so I hope that I can trust that, because they're at a different phase in their life. And it's okay to even show them. I've shown my mid-school and high schoolers this stuff. And we're just now talking about this with our students. And I've told our mid-schoolers, hey, what you're dealing with is not the same with what our high schoolers are dealing with. And I've told our high schoolers the same thing. And so you need to start guiding and giving them. It's okay to say, hey, we allow them to have these rules because they're older. And when you get to be that age, you're going to have those things. And so you start, making sure they understand there's a difference, because in age, there's a difference in how we handle these things. And so as they give a little more freedom, doesn't mean the kid has to have freedom. One of the questions was, where do you locate the resources with the link tree? It should be all in there. You just click on one of the buttons and it'll take you right to the web page. Answering teenagers about past experience mistakes. We get this question a lot. I think it's okay to be honest without glamorizing anything. I think it's okay to say, hey, mom was, as your dad, I'll just speak from my own perspective. Hey, I wasn't always perfect as a teenager, and I made some mistakes sometimes. That's one of the amazing things about having a relationship with Christ is like, God has forgiven me, and I've tried to make the right steps in life from there. And so your relationship with Christ may be in a different spot when you were a teenager than where you're at now. And I think your relationship with Christ might not be the same as what your teenager's relationship with Christ is right now. And so I think it's okay to share, like, I had some of those experiences. This brings up another great thing. The worst thing you can do if your teenager actually confides in you is to act like you're blown away, or act like you're disgusted by it, or act like you're ashamed of it. They are going to they're looking at your response. If your teenager opens up and says, I've been doing this and this, and I don't know. The worst thing you can do is start shaming and putting them down. You need to say, hey, I want to thank you for sharing that with me. Hey, let's talk more about this, because obviously, maybe this was a choice that we don't want to continue to make. And we need to talk about this as a family and what that can look like, because we are following after God. And so we need to continue having these conversations. And so I think those are all really good conversations to have. When your kids are dating other people, and it's maybe someone you don't approve of, this is always gonna be a tough one. But to me, you're still the parent. You need to talk to them about the standards you have for them. And if someone doesn't meet your standard with them, and make realistic standards, but if they don't meet the standard that you have for them, I think it's okay at this point, as 14, 15, 16 years old, to say, we're not okay with this. 17-year-old, we're not okay with this. And you need to let them know why you're not okay with it. You need to set the standard for it. That child is the most important thing under your roof. And you would not allow anything else to go out of your house with someone that didn't meet up to your standard. You need to have those talks with them, and it's okay to set those boundaries. If you see a red flag in a relationship, you need to set those boundaries. You need to let them know this is not okay. And we see a danger in this relationship that's going to be harmful to you, or that just isn't going to be healthy for you right now. And we're not going to allow it. Now, hey, you turn 18, you turn 19, you turn 21, and you move out of this house, that's up to you, but you're still here. I know there's this misconception sometimes of, well, they'll just figure it out, and that's just going to make them want to date more anyway. I've seen this take place over and over and over. And I understand it can be hard. It can be tough, and it may create some fighting even. But I know, because I've been doing student ministry for a long enough time, I know the students that say, man, when my parents did that, I was so mad at them. 99% of those times, though, as they've gotten older, they've said, I'm so glad they did that, though. I'm so glad. Almost every time they've come back and said, I'm so glad they've done that. So that is going to be a hard one, and it's going to be tough, but you are the parent. And that goes for their dating. That goes for having conversations about cell phones, computer usage, history. Don't turn it into, I'm spying on you. Talk to them about accountability. Hey, this is still something that we want to have accountability with. I want to be able to check your phone whenever, anytime, because there should never be anything on there that you should have to worry about. So we do check your history. I want to see your cell phone at any time. Have that accountability with them and let them know, hey, we have accountability. If you have a spouse, it's okay to say, hey, the same way your mom can grab my phone at any time, or I can grab your mom's phone at any time, it's just open. And we expect to be able to do the same thing for you. It's still something you can help them with, but always talk to them about the why. We just want to be protected. And sometimes things come along and we just want to know. And so have those conversations with them. All of those are good questions. I don't know if those are all going through in the group chat. Somehow these all started coming and just saying direct. So I don't know if I clicked something wrong or not, but those were all questions that were coming through. I know our time is running out. Parents, at any point in time, if you have questions or anything, you can contact me. I am by no means like the world's expert. I know teenagers pretty well, and I'm living in that world, and I'm doing the same things you guys are doing right now too. So we will continue to have these talks. We'll continue to have these conversations. You can do this. Take those tools, pick one little thing and start out. The moment you open a door, that door is going to be open. Keep that door open. When your kid knows that door is open, when they were ready to share, they're going to know they can talk to you. Have those tough conversations because it's necessary and because it's worth it. They're learning something somewhere. Let it be from you. Let it be truth. So our thing's about to end right now. Thank you guys for joining us. Share this with other people. Go back and check out some of those other ones. And just thanks all for being here. And I think that is about it. We're about seconds away, so I'm going to end it. Thank you guys. You've been awesome.